Hey, so in the HDR Soft Photomatics Facebook group, I was asked, how can you make a HDR image look moody? They typically look just flat and boring. And yes, it is. The idea of HDR is to take the high dynamic range of the entire scene and then compress it into something that has less dynamic range. So of course, what are you getting rid of? You're getting rid of all those really dark shadow areas. You're getting rid of all those really bright highlight areas, and what you're doing is you're compressing it and making it flat. That's what HDR does, and that's why people have complaints about HDR, because they think that it looks flat. But can you make it look moody? Can you make it look sexy? And the answer is, well, yeah, of course. This here is my HDR image. This is using 5 stops, and here's my finished image. And you can see that there's a lot of contrast there. There's a lot of brightness there. There's a lot of darkness there, and that is what gives it some mood. So let's dive into this. All right, I am going to get into my HDR image. I'm going to go Command E. I'm going to edit it. Now, the key to making any HDR image look a little bit moody is to work on the contrast that you have and work on the contrast that you, well, want to get. The first thing I'm going to do is work on that contrast. I'm going to go down and create a brightness contrast layer. From here, I can increase my brightness, I can increase my contrast, and you can see right away that just by increasing that contrast and brightness, it gives it that mood. Conversely, you can do exactly the opposite and take it down to the point where it's really dark. What I like to do, I actually like to bring it down to around a -30, and then increase my contrast up to around a +30, maybe a little higher, maybe a little bit lower, just depends on the image there. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking at the blacks, and I want to make sure that my dark areas there are really nice and dark. I want that to be, well, dark. So next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my background image, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm just going to call this my lighten layer. I'm going to bring that all the way to the top. And now here, well, is my original image. Kind of boring. What if I change that now, instead of just being a normal type of image, and I change that to a screen? All of a sudden, you can see how it just brightens everything up. But I don't want it all bright. That's the problem. The thing with mood is that it only affects certain areas. So I'm going to grab that, put a mask on it, invert my mask, grab my brush, increase the size of my brush, and then I'm just going to start coloring this stuff in. Where do I want it to be nice and bright? Where do I want that little extra bit of pop? How do I add that? Okay, so it is coming from the windows there. I wanted to hit the window over here, and maybe just a little of the ceiling there. Okay, that's all right. Maybe I am going to pop a little light down here to make it look like I had a false flash, just to do a little bit of fill. And you can play around with all this and figure out where you want that extra light to go to really make it pop. And that is how you create mood, by just using HDR. Now, of course, if you want to go back and make it look like this, then this is something that we teach in my online course. Just go to the link below at learn.robmaroto.com, and you can learn how to make this image as well. All right, and before we go, I want to tell you that this is not just one of those things that you have to do in Photoshop. You can actually do it with Lightroom as well if you have the right image, where there's already some interesting aspects of the lighting with the HDR. So check this out. This here is a shot of the kitchen. And you can see, all right, we've already got the amazing light coming in down here, creating some great background lighting for the kitchen. We got some lighting that's hitting the back wall here. This looks great. Now, if I want to make this moodier, what can I do? Same kind of idea. I can increase the contrast a lot. I can drop down that exposure so it's a little bit darker and moodier and a little bit more romantic, kind of like early morning sunrise kind of feel. But you can see that as soon as I increase that contrast, decrease the exposure, that saturation really kicks in, and those oranges and yellows just become absolutely awful. How do we fix that? Simple. We go down to here, to our saturation slider, and I just pull that down enough that it makes it feel natural again. Because here's the thing, saturation, color, they go hand in hand. Like if you think about red, and just think about any red that you can think of in your head, and then as soon as you make that red really, really bright, what happens? It turns white. If you take that red and make it really, really dark, eventually it turns black. So color, saturation, light, they're all connected that way. So here, because I made that contrast where everything gets a little bit darker, darkening the colors means that I have to desaturate it so that it still looks like it's the same color on my screen. All right, so once I got to the point where that color still looks natural and real, now I can play with it again. All right, so I've decreased my exposure, I've increased my contrast. Now, how about this? How about if I increase my whites? And how about if I take my blacks down just a bit? No, I don't want to lose that, but I can take down my shadows just a little bit. And there you go. There's my final image, just using the sliders in Lightroom. All right, I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, questions, put them below, and be sure to click on like, subscribe, and click on that little bell to be notified every time we put up new content. And I am happy to announce that our online real estate photography course is now done, and it is ready for you. Just go to www.robmaroto.com and use a coupon code that is in the show notes here to get yourself a nice little discount. All right, see you later.